We turn now to Rafael Saliés, a Brazilian operations director for the advisory firm Southern Pulse. Thank you so much for joining us. First, I'd like to get your take on what's happened so far in Dilma's appearance on Monday. Can she salvage her presidency and her legacy?
Well, her legacy is a matter that's going to be in dispute. Her presidency ultimately was not a very successful presidency. Development through the country, specifically with the depression we've been going through, which she does have a point, and as she made in her statement, was made worse by political instability, but nonetheless, it was somewhat created by her own policies as president. It was made worse as well by a international economic crisis, downfall of commodity prices. There are a number of factors that mitigate her guilt in provoking the fiscal and economic crisis Brazil went through, but nonetheless, she does have a guilt in what Brazil did go through the past 4 years, specifically the depression for the last year and a half. However, if she's going to save her presidency, we're far past that at the moment. While nothing's impossible, there needs to be something extremely dramatic to save her presidency.
Well, many have been predicting that she will be removed from office. So if you can't take us through this long day of her speaking and answering questions, what's really behind all that? Is that just for show?
Yeah, it's institutionalism at its best, where the Brazilian Senate is running through the motions of a final impeachment vote, one by one. Dilma took a courageous step in going towards the Senate and defending herself. That must be said, at least, of her, that she is a woman with immense personal courage to go there and spend over 12 hours defending herself in a process that's basically a done game. There's not much that she can say that's going to be able to turn over 8, 9 votes, which is more or less what she needs at the moment.
She did describe, her being tortured earlier on in her life, her situation. This is not anything to compare it to, but how is interim President Michel Temer being viewed as this trial drags on? Does he have any supporters, or people looking at him as more of the same?
People in general look at him as more of the same. Michel Temer is a politician's politician. He really does not have his own public support. If he had not been presidential candidate for Dilma Rousseff in 2010, he would have likely stayed off any elected ballot in 2010 for the lower house of Congress. He barely got himself elected in 2006. So he really doesn't have a popular basis of support. Nonetheless, for a lot of people in Brazil, he is still not Dilma Rousseff, which has its own value for a number of people throughout the country. That being said, he's tended to stay out of the spotlight in the past month. As you could see during the Olympics, the opening ceremony, if you weren't paying very close attention, you could be excused for not knowing Brazil had a president present at the opening ceremony. The same could be said at the closing ceremony, where he simply did not attend in order to avoid being booed by the crowd and perceived as unpopular, right? Which is something that polls show throughout the country. So he's just waiting this one out until he's no longer an interim, and then he can start appearing more to the public, start actually enacting policies that he's been promising, that he's been testing with Brazilian media. But until then, we're going to just see him sit it out in the sidelines in a nonchalant way, pretending nothing is happening in order to avoid any blowback to himself personally.
All right, Rafael Saliés joining us from Rio de Janeiro. Thank you.